Okay, so hello viewers, let's see how we can deploy an Angular app to different environments on Pivotal Cloud Foundry with different configurations. But before we start, we need to perform some steps as prerequisites before deploying an Angular app. So let's see what that is. Adding different environment configs. So we will now have different environment config properties for different environments. Like development and app configuration is different from testing configuration, right? We will now see how and where to add to those environment configs as well. The next thing is updating angular.json file. Once environment config is added, we need to define those environments in angular.json file. And we'll also see how to build an app with different environment configs by giving environment name while building Angular app. And the last thing is once build is done, we can also run app with different configs again by giving environment name as argument to see if app reflects the appropriate environment configs or not. Now let's go ahead and run, build and deploy this app with different environment configurations. I'm going to use VS Code's terminal and Angular CLI to create Angular project. So let me open terminal and go to appropriate folder. And now let me create Angular project via Angular CLI command, that is ng new followed by app name, that is multi environment app. So I put Angular routing as no and I'm going to use CSS as well. Okay, looks like app is created successfully. Let's go ahead and test it. So when you create a new Angular app, it will create a folder with app name followed by all the files within that app. This is called scaffolding, which Angular gives you all the ready-made files so that you can go ahead and start your project. Let me go to that folder and run ngserve to test the app name and its functionality as well. Okay, app compiled successfully and it is running. Let's go to browser and test it. So Angular app by default runs on localhost 4200 and this is the screen what we expected. So now let's go ahead and add configurations for different environments and pick it and display it on the same screen what we are seeing now. So now in order to add different environments, we need to go to source folder, environments folder followed by environment.ts. We can add configuration right here. This is the default file which Angular picks up when you don't give in any environment while running your project. Right, so there are two ways to create configuration here. One is you can make use of existing environment object to add all your configurations within this object, or you can also go ahead and create your new object. I'm going to create my new object because I want to maintain all my configurations separate. I'm going to put it as environment config and put environment name here. As this is the default file what Angular picks if you don't give any configuration or environment, I'm going to name it as development environment. And now I'm going to pick this name from here to display it on the UI. So let's go to app.component.ts. Let me import it. Environment config from environment/environment. Now let me declare a variable called environment name and assign this environment config dot name here. Once we have a variable called environment name, we format it. Once we have environment name, we can display this on the HTML via interpolation. So let me go to HTML and remove all these unnecessary things, and let me put h1 tag followed by span tag here and put environment name and give some nice color, maybe a dark red here in this case. So style color #c 3002e would work fine. It's a dark red, and then followed by environment name. Now let's go ahead and run it and test it. App compiled successfully. Let's go to browser and test it. So let me try to restart this localhost 4200 to C environment, and there you go. So this is coming from environment.ts. The reason it is picking this development environment is because we didn't give any environment name while running this project. But if you give any environment name, it should pick appropriate file. So let's see how we can add new configuration for testing environment now. So now let's go ahead and create a new file under environments folder called environment dot followed by environment name. If you want to give, we can give any environment name, but for now I'm going to give it as test.ts, and I'm going to copy all these objects from environment.ts and paste it in environment test.ts and change this name from development environment to testing environment. But this alone won't suffice the purpose, right? It won't give you testing environment displayed on the UI. Why? The reason is because we didn't let Angular know that there is a test environment here. To let Angular know about this thing, go to angular.json file and focus on this projects folder. And to be specific, focus on this build object and serve object. As we're going to serve now, as we are going to use ng serve now, we will just add a test environment here under configurations object. I'll copy paste this and change this to test. And this is the environment name which should match with the environment.test.ts. The file you just created has environment name in it called test, and it should refer the same name in this configurations object as well. And also change this production to test. Now let's go ahead and run this application now with a new environment what we just created, that is test environment. Okay, it threw an error saying configuration test is not set in the workspace. So maybe we should add this environment in build as well, build object as well. So let's go to build and copy this production until here. I don't want everything. I'm just copying production with file replacement array, and I'm going to add it as new and rename this to test environment. And when you use this test environment, this environment.ts regular default file should be replaced with environment.test.ts file. Now as we have environments in both build and serve, let's go ahead and test it. So it looks like the app is trying to compile now. Once it is compiled, we'll go to browser and see testing environment properties within this UI what we just saw. Okay, app compiled successfully. Let's go to browser. Let me refresh this. Perfect. This is picking testing environment details. The reason is because we used ng serve followed by configuration equals to, we give the environment name like which file to pick up and all. So that's how you run application with different environments and with different environment configurations as well. Now let's go ahead and see how to build it with different environments and configurations.